Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this video right now, chances are you've already heard about this moment, the one that made the hair on the back of everyone's neck stand up. At Stanford Stadium in California, something happened that didn't just shake the hearts of ARMY fans worldwide. It made the entire planet stop, go silent, and then break into tears. Picture this. Tens of thousands of people from every corner of the world gathered inside one historic old stadium in Palo Alto, California. And among that massive crowd, a group of fans who had traveled all the way from Mexico, a country where even the president personally intervened for BTS, were holding up the South Korean flag high above their heads, in the middle of a roaring sea of humanity. They didn't raise their own flag. They raised the Taegukgi, the Korean flag, for Jimin. And that moment trended in 50 countries within hours. So sit back, because today we are going to break down exactly why this wasn't just another viral moment, but a declaration of love across continents unlike anything the world of K-pop has ever seen before. Before we get to that historic moment, we need a quick flashback. For almost 4 years, BTS did not perform together on a stage. All 7 members, RM, Jin, Suga, Jhope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, had to complete mandatory military service in South Korea, an obligation that every Korean man must fulfill. During that time, ARMY around the world waited and kept waiting. But then, they came back. BTS released their 5th studio album, ARIRANG, on March 20th, 2026, an album born from deep reflection on Korean identity, artistic freedom, and gratitude toward the fans who faithfully stood by. And alongside that album came the BTS World Tour ARIRANG, an epic global run spanning 23 countries, 34 cities, and 79 shows. Think about the scale of this, starting in Goyang, South Korea in April 2026, sweeping through North America, Latin America, Europe, Australia, and Asia, wrapping up in Manila, Philippines in March 2027. This was not just a concert tour. This was the return of 7 men who had proven, time and time again, that music knows no borders, no language barriers, and no flags. Now, before the Stanford moment happened, we need to talk about Mexico and BTS, because this relationship runs far deeper than most people realize. When BTS announced 3 nights at GNP Seguros Stadium in Mexico City on May 7th, 9, and 10, 2026, tickets sold out in minutes. Not hours, minutes. The demand was so massive, so overwhelming, that it reached a level never seen before in entertainment history. Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, stepped in personally. She sent an official letter to South Korea's prime minister, diplomatically requesting that BTS add more concert dates in Mexico. "We have not yet received a response," Sheinbaum said at a press conference, "but we hope it will be positive." When the concerts actually happened in Mexico City, Jimin stood at the center of the 360-degree stage, microphone in hand, looking out at 50,000 pairs of eyes that were streaming with tears and radiating pure love. He pulled out his phone and read a message he had personally prepared in Spanish. "You listen to our songs a lot, don't you? Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I didn't know you'd be this amazing. You really know how to have fun. You're the best. I love you more than anyone." And outside the stadium, 40,000 fans without tickets still showed up, just to be near the energy. They sang, they danced, and they turned the streets surrounding the venue into a vibrating purple festival that pulsed with joy until the early hours of the morning. Mexico wasn't just watching BTS. Mexico worshipped BTS. And when BTS headed to California, some of that Mexican army flew right along with them. Stanford Stadium, Palo Alto, California. Built in 1921, this stadium is normally home to the Stanford Cardinal American football team. Rarely, and we mean truly, almost never, has it hosted a music concert. Before BTS, only Coldplay had ever performed there. Then BTS arrived, and in an instant, they didn't just fill one night, not 2, but 3 consecutive nights. A 3rd show was added because the demand was so overwhelming there was simply no other option. BTS became the first artist in the history of Stanford Stadium to perform 3 shows back-to-back. Around 152,000 fans attended across those 3 nights. Even before the show began, Stanford Stadium already felt like the center of the universe. Thousands of glowing purple lights flickered across the stands. Fans from countries everywhere, the US, Mexico, Canada, Brazil, the Philippines, Indonesia, Korea, all gathered together, dressed in their finest, army bombs clutched in hand, shimmering in unison. And somewhere in that crowd, a group of fans could be seen quietly, carefully preparing something. They were holding rolls of fabric, red, white, and blue, with a red and blue circle at the center. The South Korean flag, the taegukgi, and they were Mexican fans. On the final night, May 19th, 2026, something happened that no management team had planned. When BTS launched into Body to Body, a centerpiece track from the ARIRANG album, a moment filled with intentional love began to unfold. One by one, South Korean flags started rising up in the stands. Not from Korean fans, not from American fans, but from the Mexican fans who had traveled all the way to Stanford. Fans whose country speaks Spanish, whose national dish is not bibimbap, whose president had literally sent a diplomatic letter to Seoul. They lifted the taegukgi with pride. Within seconds, the entire stadium followed. Korean flags rippled from one corner to the next. The massive screens on stage displayed digital flag visuals. And now, in the real physical stands, those same flags had come to life, raised by hands from every corner of the world. People who were there that night described the moment with one word: breathtaking. Fan cameras capturing the moment from every angle then caught something even more special: Jimin's reaction. Jimin, who had been sprinting from one end of the protruding stage to the other, waving, locking eyes with fans in every section, paused for just a second. His eyes caught the wave of flags sweeping across the crowd, and on his face, displayed clearly on the giant screen overhead, there was a smile. Not the practiced smile of a performer hitting a mark, but the smile of someone genuinely, completely surprised and moved. At the very end of the concert, Jimin spoke words that immediately pulled tears from every army in the building. "I was truly happy that your voices filled this place today. It will get colder as the night falls, so please all return safely." Simple, sincere, and somehow, those quiet words landed harder than any anthem. Now here's the part that makes your head spin. Videos of that moment. Mexican fans raising Korean flags, Jimin's reaction, the sea of taegukgi at Stanford, spread with a speed that was almost impossible to comprehend. In less than 6 hours after the concert ended, related hashtags were trending in over 50 countries on X, formerly known as Twitter. South Korea, Indonesia, the Philippines, Brazil, Turkey, France, Germany, Australia, India. Everyone was talking about the exact same thing. So why did this moment hit this hard? First, it was completely genuine. Mexican fans did not do this because they were told to. There was no instruction from management, no official fan project promoted by Big Hit. This was a purely grassroots initiative from the Mexican army community, planned independently, and that authenticity was felt by everyone who saw it. Second, the historical weight behind it. The world already knew how deeply Mexico loves BTS. A president writing letters, 40,000 fans standing outside a sold-out stadium, an entire city brought to a standstill. And now Mexican fans were showing the world that their love wasn't about themselves. It was for Korea, for BTS, for Jimin. Third, BTS was at a peak cultural moment. The ARIRANG album spoke about Korean identity, about the pride of being Korean. And then suddenly, fans from a Latin American nation lifted Korean flags? That was a perfect circle. It was the world sending back the message: your culture is beautiful, and we see it. Fourth, Jimin. There is almost always a Jimin at the center of the most viral moments in BTS history. In May 2026, Jimin ranked first in the boy group individual brand reputation survey, with major keywords identified as Army, World Tour, and Mexico. Jimin is not just a member of BTS. He is a gravitational force that pulls the world toward him. There's a question that might float through your mind watching all of this. Why did fans from Mexico raise the Korean flag instead of their own? The answer is simple, and it's exactly what makes it so beautiful. Because they wanted to give, not to show. Mexican fans didn't fly to Stanford to put themselves in the spotlight. They came to celebrate BTS's identity, Korean identity, for 7 men who have given so much to the world. They understood that the ARIRANG album was born from BTS's deep pride in being Korean. And they wanted BTS to know, we see that, we honor that, we celebrate it right alongside you. This was never really about K-pop. This was about human connection that transcends geography and culture. And Stanford Stadium became the witness to how music, specifically BTS's music, can build a bridge between Mexico and Korea, between Latin America and East Asia, between two worlds separated by thousands of miles of ocean. When you watch that video, people from Mexico waving the taegukgi while singing songs in Korean, you are watching the very best version of what music is capable of doing. Music doesn't ask for permission to enter a heart. Music doesn't need a visa to cross a border. Music simply speaks, and an open heart will always hear it. BTS at Stanford was never just about a concert. This was a historic achievement that will be remembered for decades. Stanford Stadium, a venue that almost never hosts live music, suddenly became the stage for 3 consecutive nights headlined by a South Korean group. BTS became the first artists in history to do it. They performed in front of a combined total of 152,000 people, and every single night the energy never dropped, never faltered, never dimmed. Throughout the shows, the sweeping 360-degree stage allowed all 7 members to run to every corner, to make eye contact with fans from every direction. Jimin, with his signature golden hair catching the stage lights, sprinted, spun, waved, and made sure every section of that stadium felt his presence. And on X, the numbers told their own story. Members' names trended in real time across multiple countries, including the United States, night after night. Each evening brought new keyword trends, and Jimin was consistently among the highest of them all. And this was just one stop on a tour that still had a long way to go. After Stanford, BTS continued to Las Vegas, then on to Asia and Australia, with 79 total shows carrying them across 23 countries until 2027. Every city they visit will receive the best of them. Every stadium they fill will hold a moment that cannot be forgotten. But Stanford, with its sea of Korean flags raised by Mexican hands, will always hold a singular, irreplaceable place in Army's history. For every Army around the world watching this video right now, you might already know that the Stanford moment rippled across social media in countries on every continent. Army reacted fast, reacted with full hearts, and helped push that video into the eyes of people who had never heard of BTS, people who didn't know what taegukgi was, people who simply saw the clip and felt something shift inside them. And that wasn't an accident. Army, whether in Mexico, Indonesia, the Philippines, Brazil, or anywhere else on Earth, shares one single thread: love that outlasts distance, language, and flags. The moment Mexican fans raise the Korean flag is not just a story about Mexico. It's a story about all of us, about every Army who has ever cried listening to a BTS song alone in their room, who has ever tried to learn Korean just to understand the lyrics a little more deeply, who has ever saved up for months just to buy a physical album. We can't always be there in person at Stanford Stadium, but our energy, our love, is always present. And if the day ever comes when BTS performs in your city, and the belief is that day will come, the moment we create together will be every bit as powerful. So that's the full story of the moment that shook the world. Mexican fans at Stanford Stadium raised the Korean flag for Jimin, and the world held its breath for a second before erupting into tears and thunderous joy. This was not just a fan project. This was not just a viral clip. This was living proof that BTS has built something that has never existed before. A global community that loves each other, celebrates each other, and lifts each other up, beyond every boundary that was ever supposed to divide us. If this video moved you, please hit like, leave a comment, and share it with every Army who deserves to feel this moment too. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because we're going to keep telling the extraordinary stories coming out of this ARIRANG tour. And one last thing, to Jimin, to BTS, from every single Army on this planet, thank you for coming back. Thank you for still being here. And thank you for proving that love has never needed a border to exist. Purple you, Purple Heart.